The night sky was illuminated with flashes of neon, reflecting in the puddles left on the pavement after a light drizzle. The city, although bustling, had a warm and comforting atmosphere, as if its lights embraced those wandering through its streets. In the center of this vibrant scene, a group of young people gathered in a small café hidden among red brick buildings. It was their refuge, their meeting point, the place where they could be themselves without the pressures of the outside world. Cheney glanced at the clock impatiently. For days, she had noticed that the group's energy felt different. Each one was grappling with their own internal conflicts, and although they tried to mask it with smiles and jokes, the emotional weight was evident. Young Bin, the natural leader of the group, ran a hand through his hair and exhaled a sigh before speaking. "We need to do something, we can't go on like this," he said, his gaze fixed on the table. Jae-yoon smiled, trying to lighten the mood. "And what do you suggest? A trip to the beach? A journey with no destination?" His voice had a carefree tone, but the same weariness reflected in his eyes as in the others. Ro-won, who had remained silent until then, lifted his gaze and spoke calmly. "It's not the place, nor the journey. It's the weight we carry inside." He let his words hang in the air, allowing his friends to absorb them. The conversation was interrupted when a sudden gust of wind swung the cafe door open. In-seong laughed and pointed to the entrance. "Maybe it's a sign that change is coming on its own." That night, without much planning, the boys decided to take a spontaneous stroll. They walked through the illuminated streets, crossed bridges adorned with fairy lights, and stopped in front of an old, closed amusement park. The rusty gate creaked as Soho gently pushed it open. "Come on," he said, a glint of mischief in his eyes. One by one, the boys entered the park. The thrill of being in a forbidden place awakened the excitement they had forgotten over the past months. They climbed onto the horses of a carousel that still spun slowly in the wind, ran through the funhouse laughing at their distorted reflections, and sat on the Ferris wheel, gazing down at the city from above. In that moment, time seemed to stand still. Dawn closed his eyes and let the cool breeze clear his mind. "Maybe Ro-won is right," he said softly. "It's not the place, but how we feel inside." Cheney nodded. "We've worried so much about what comes next, about the future, that we've forgotten to enjoy the now." Youngbin stood up and extended a hand to the others. "Then let's make a pact. From today on, no matter what happens, no matter how difficult life gets, let's promise not to worry about what we cannot change. Let's move forward and find happiness in the little moments." One by one, his friends took his hand, sealing the promise with a sincere smile. The Ferris wheel began to descend, and with it, the burden in their hearts seemed to lighten. As the sun began to tint the sky with orange and pink hues, the group exited the park with renewed energy. They didn't know what the future held for them, but they did know one thing for certain: they wouldn't let worries steal their happiness. Because at the end of the day, all that mattered was being together. And that, for them, was enough.